Hey guys, we're going to talk about some new APIs, setting bitmaps, finding if an existing texture has bitmaps, get debug info, and add SkyDome. They all work. Now in terms of loading textures, I've done a test on different formats, and this is a spreadsheet. So this is I was using PNG for everything, but I realized that it's actually the worst format in terms of speed. This is the time in milliseconds, how long it takes to load two 4K textures at the start of the level, and that's 1.7 seconds. That's pretty bad. Whereas if you use some of these other formats like DDS uncompressed, that's the fastest. Now this is all for DirectX 9, of course. It's not OpenGL. I think if you're using OpenGL, probably bitmap would be your next best one. Yeah. It's still very good actually. Bitmap actually, yeah, it's quite good. So basically I'm comparing the size of the file versus the time it takes to load. So some of these are compressed and some are not compressed. Now that's the two factors that go into loading a texture. The speed is the size of the texture and how much compression or the type of compression it's got. Now with DDS, it's uncompressed. I found this to be the fastest for DirectX 9. 188 milliseconds for two 4K textures. That's super fast. This here's the factors. How much more times faster is than using PNG. So PNG is my default. This is nearly 10 times faster using DDS, and it's the same data, same texture. So that's incredible actually. I didn't know that until I tested it all out. Bitmap's pretty good. So it's still 128 megabytes. The size is still up there. It's a bit high. What I like to do is get the size of the file down plus the speed as high as possible, so there's a nice balance between the two. So with DDS, you basically got two main types: BC1 compression and BC3 compression. As I understand it, BC1 is 16-bit and BC3 is 24-bit. Now BC1 is good in terms of the size. You can go from 128 megabytes or 26 from PNG down to 16 for the same information, and the speed is way quicker, nearly 7 times faster. So now that's without using bitmaps. All textures that loaded into CopperCube by default have bitmaps created in the engine itself, either through the graphics card or through the software. You can turn it off, and it actually is a bit quick if you do that. So if you want a texture that doesn't use bitmaps, well, most textures actually don't, unless it's like, like terrain or a level that you're looking in the long distance with detail. You'd want bitmaps for that, of course. But if it's like just an image, like a 2D image that it's not in the 3D realm, then you don't need bitmaps for that. So by default, bitmaps are always created in CopperCube, but I've created a new API to turn it off and on. So this one here, set bitmaps. You can just put true or false. Okay, so this API here sets the bitmap setting for the graphics card. So this will apply to all textures from that point onwards to either have bitmaps or to not have bitmaps. So you need to, if you're turning it off to load certain textures, you need to make sure you turn it back on again for other textures that need it afterwards. So, and this one here just is a little query just to say, has this texture got bitmaps on it? Just as confirmation that it's all working. Yeah. So by default, always have bitmaps are created, but you can turn it off. So you can see here the difference between this BC1. Everything's exactly the same, except for on the first. This part here, I've turned bitmaps off, and it was 265 milliseconds versus 320, so that's like 60. What's that? 55 milliseconds fast, a little bit quicker. Why not? And probably less memory in the graphics card, I'll suspect as well, because you're not creating extra bitmaps. Same thing here, BC3. I've turned bitmaps off for that, and it was 372 milliseconds to load a BC3, which is not bad. Still 5 times faster than PNG. But if you turn off bitmaps for stuff you don't need, for example, in like SkyDome or something like that, something just have one level of detail for the whole thing, in terms of the texture, then that's a little bit quicker. So yeah, it's definitely usable. Now there's other ones called BC4, but that's really for grayscale only. Ambient inclusion, specular gloss, metalness. Generally speaking, you won't use that. Now compared to JPEG, you don't want to use JPEG. It's not only the quality much lower, but the compression is so high it takes a long time to decompress. So that's like only twice as fast as PNG, but the quality will be much less. So yeah, so it's not really that great actually. DDS is way better. A lot of the other formats are way better than JPEG in terms of quality and speed. In terms of size, yeah, it's the best in terms of size. But so here we've got some other formats. So uncompressed DDS, 188 milliseconds. Bitmaps, pretty good actually. 235 milliseconds. This is all to load two lots of 4K textures on the start. And that's the size of the file, 128 megabytes. And TGA is not too bad. That's pretty quick. Same size file as well. Now TGA has the best transparency. Actually, supposedly it's better than PNG. But anyway, now with the limitations on BC1, why you wouldn't use that for everything is because it's got limited transparency and the colors are limited as well. So if you don't have a high variation in colors, then it might be good for that. You can test it out and see. I've got a comparison here. Okay, here's one here. This is the PNG load. So I've loaded PNG and took a photo of a certain spot of my game level. Looking down at the ground. Yeah, it's a bit blurry, but I mean, that's still 4K texture. So that's PNG with this color, and this is the same texture created into BC3 and BC1. We've lost some texture color there for some reason. Yeah, so anyway, you might want to just double check that. You might lose a little bit of color detail. I thought that was only with BC1 actually, not BC3. I'd have to double check that again. But anyway, but BC3 has better transparency and better colors. So it's in terms of BC1 versus BC3. Maybe the best. Depends. I might have to do some experimentation, but it might be the better option of the two if you want better color. Twice the size, the file, 32 megabytes, and it's a bit slower to load, of course. So if you turn bitmaps off, it's 309 milliseconds, but if you just leave it by default, it'll create bitmaps and it'll be 372 milliseconds. So yeah, there's a difference in speed there. So you why create bitmaps if you don't need it? So that's something you can do. You can just turn it off. You can use this set bitmaps and just true or false, just turn it off and on. If you do turn it off, you just probably want to make sure you remember to turn it back on again later, unless of course you know that the textures you're going to load later don't need it either. Okay, so yeah, DDS, yeah, there's other formats in GIMP and stuff. BC3 RxGB, well that didn't load into CopperCube, and BC5 wouldn't load either. That's, I'm pretty sure, BC5, that's DirectX 11, pretty sure, so that won't work in CopperCube. Alright, so yeah, so I'll show you an example. I'll firstly load PNG, just standard PNG images. I'll show you that. Okay, waiting there a little bit. So see up there on top right, it says texture loading time 1878. So that's, yeah, it's 1.8 seconds basically. So not really fast at all. And I'll change that now to load the DDS. The same textures, looks the same. Can't tell any difference really once it's loaded. To load the DDS, and you'll see it's just so much faster. Alright, 2 4K textures, yep. I'll leave bitmaps on for now. Well, I need it for the train anyway, but just as a test, I'll do something different later. Okay, it's almost instantaneous. It's heaps quicker. It says right there, texture loading time 386 milliseconds. So that's way better. Just crazy better. And by the way, I've got SkyDome as well. I've just created a SkyDome there. and it also works with far plane clipping. Notice I've put the far plane clipping up really close on the train. See, that's what's doing that. But it's not cutting out the SkyDome, so that's good. So you can actually use a SkyDome in the distance and still use far plane clipping if you want. So if you had an absolutely huge terrain, you could do that. By default, skyboxes do not get clipped using the far plane clipping, and also the SkyDome won't either, so long as you don't make the clipping too close. There is sometimes the SkyDome will get clipped, but by default it won't with standard settings. So what I'll do now, so that was okay, yeah, it would have been that one. So that's standard bitmaps, 370 to 380 milliseconds. So that's the BC3 I was just loading just then. But if I turn, just as I can show you as an example, turn bitmaps off. You wouldn't do it for train textures. You need bitmaps for that. But as a test, I'll show you what it does. See that set bitmaps false. Yeah, so it causes artifacts really bad that it's totally unusable into your game. But in terms of speed, I'll show you the difference. Okay, so it said there 334, so that's about a 50 millisecond speed improvement. See that jittering in the distance? In case you're wondering, that's the problem with OpenGL terrain. If you've ever used OpenGL terrains and you add a second texture, it does that. There's a problem with bitmapping in the OpenGL CopperCube that has never been fixed. I said that to Nico, but he never did anything with it. Anyway, so that was like years ago. That's why I don't use OpenGL, because I need proper terrain textures. What if I was to turn bitmaps off, like I already have, and then in the creation of the texture, actually add the bitmaps into the texture? 324 milliseconds to load, so that texture has bitmaps in the texture, but no, it's still the version of CopperCube has not been able to utilize that, so no, can't use it. Okay, fair enough. So yeah, don't create your textures with bitmaps in it, because it'll be pointless. Won't be used in CopperCube. Just create your textures without any bitmaps and let CopperCube do its thing, because it wants to create bitmaps by itself. So I can set bitmaps false to load this SkyDome texture. So there it is there, add SkyDome. There's the texture, and then I'll ask it, has it got bitmaps, just to be sure that that's working correctly. It should say false. Yeah, because I'm doing a query on the texture name, so you need the full texture name for that. So there's the API for add SkyDome, same thing, and all you need is to add the texture into it. That's all you need to do, and it will add that to the creation of the SkyDome. Okay, so I've turned bitmaps off. It should say false when I run the SkyDome. All right, I'll just press to create a SkyDome. There it is. There's the SkyDome. Bitmaps false, yes. You don't need bitmaps on. It's a transparent texture. It works really nice. That's a nice texture. I'm using it's just this far plane clipping. It's just as a test. You'd never run a game like that right now. Obviously, you would make it much further away. If you had a super duper massive terrain, you could actually use this far plane clipping and still get decent performance out of it that way. Actually, that's the idea. You just cut everything out. But some things you don't want to cut out, like the skybox, SkyDome. I've got other things that I don't want to cut out that are cut out, unfortunately, like the planets and the sun. They are cut out. I haven't worked out a way to fix that as yet. I've asked Nico and asked some other people. I don't know if it's possible, actually. But it would be nice to use this far plane clipping idea so that you could have a super huge level and still get good performance out of it. Yeah, I don't know about that just yet. Okay, so that's those ones. Now get debug info. That works as well. Yeah, All you need to do is just put just like that, and it will print the information up on the screen in debug mode. So yeah, press the M key. I'll just go back there and do it again. Alright, so it gives you a nice bit of different bits of information for that as well. So I'll push M now, and it tells you the number of the total textures in memory, tells you the available texture memory. Now that's not just on the video card, it's the mix of the video card plus system memory, I believe. It's not only video card, because my video cards are 3 GB. It doesn't have 4 GB of memory. Anyway, and there's the FPS and occludable. If you're using occlusion culling, it'll tell you the number of available nodes that it can cull, that are able to be culled, that is, of total list, that is. Yeah, so that's what that's doing. Yeah, so that works as alright. Nice bit of information in the one line. Just gives you a nice outline, how many textures, what's the available memory. It's not the memory usage, it's the available memory. So that number will go down as you load more textures in. So yeah, okay. Alright, so that's that. In my next video, I want to showcase some blasts from the past, some nice old stuff that other people have made in Irelict years ago, and sort of some of the cool stuff that maybe one day I can add it into CopperCube. In terms of other performance stuff in your game regarding texture formats, DDS and so forth, a good website actually is Game Guru Max. They've got a guide to texture optimization. It goes through all that same stuff. That's mainly where I got it all from, and I did my own testing and I found it, yeah, pretty good little website just there. So yeah, so in terms of speed and loading speed and memory size of the file size, I should say, yeah, I think, and using DirectX 9, definitely use BC1 and BC3. Highly recommend. It's a pretty good way to go, actually. So it's massively less. It's literally I don't know, what's that, 8 times smaller file size than PNG, yet it's still between 5 and like 6 or 7 times faster to load. So yeah, it's heaps better, actually. Yeah, so I'd recommend that. And if you're using set mipmaps to turn the mipmaps off, just remember to probably turn it back on again in case you need it for other textures afterwards. Yeah, but if you don't do anything, by default every texture will have mipmaps, every single texture. You know, ones that, like, even on a skybox, I've checked, even the skybox textures have mipmaps. Well, they don't need it, but they're created anyway. Yeah, so I mean, theoretically I could turn mipmaps off at the very beginning of my game and then load all the textures for the skybox and everything else, and that'll be a little bit quicker and a little bit less memory. I suppose it's possible. If you really want to be ultra careful on everything, you could do it that way. Yeah, so anyway, I hope you like that bit of an update. Cheers.